Aloha from Maui, folks. This is Tasha with LA Live Action, here to educate, elevate, and advocate for you to get to your next level. And I have someone on who is ready to help you do that, Magan Nolan. So, Magan is from Wake the Warrior Within. Magan, thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So, I took your Wake the Warrior Within program and I absolutely loved it. And that's why I wanted to get you on here. And you have another Wake the Warrior Within program coming up. Do you want to share with people what that's about, the story behind it a little bit? Take it away.
For sure. Well, thank you. Yes. So Wake the Warrior Within is a program that dives into the warrior poses in yoga. So a lot of people haven't realized it, but there's actually an ancient story behind them that typically was taught and told alongside the poses, but that hasn't really kind of been part of the practice over here when yoga moved over to the West. But the stories themselves actually teach us so much more about the pose. So beyond just, the physical benefits of what you're doing when you do the pose, you got your arms out, you're working your legs, you're doing the breathing, you're doing all the things. That's very powerful. But what the story does is it helps you dive into the energetics of the poses. So, of course, you might think, oh, warrior, like doing a warrior, that sounds, more active and, samurai kind of deal. But it's a different expression of warrior. So when we do the warrior poses in yoga, it speaks to the journey that we're on as yogis or people practicing yoga. The journey ultimately and the goal of yoga is to learn to quiet our mind, right? And so that's the journey of the warrior. And that's the mission or the task or the battlefield that the warrior is on, is learning to kind of control the mind. And so that's what the story is all about. And so it's a crazy story. There's love, there's emotion, there's fire, there's explosions, there's all the things that you would hope for in in a good story, but they're all metaphorical. So they're
Mm-hmm.
really, instead of like it really going down, it's what it's teaching us. And so ultimately it's what we are learning and who we're evolving into on the journey of life, if you will, and evolving into the strongest, most determined and resilient and brave and intentional and authentic self, because that's really what the warrior it represents. And that's what we're doing in Wake the Warrior Within.
Nice. So, gosh, how did you come about Wake the Warrior Within? Like, what brought you to this point of I need to put this together and put together this awesome workshop and training?
Well, so I've been doing yoga, teaching yoga, and doing personal training for about 15 years. And then about 5 years ago, I had been managing a friend of mine's yoga studio, and she decided to close it. And I was grateful. At first, I was kind of devastated because I was like, so much of my identity was doing this work and, teaching and managing the studio. But I was so burnt out. I was literally like fried to the max. And I was dealing with pretty severe anxiety at the time, and I was just tapped out, burnt out, and literally my yoga practice looked like me like making my way to the yoga mat and crying, and I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And so, that's the cool thing about yoga, is that it takes many shapes and forms. Sometimes it's you laying on the floor and crying, and sometimes it's you doing, crazy poses. But as I said, the journey of yoga is really to learn to know ourselves and to be able to kind of nurture and love and appreciate and be aware. So being aware that I did not have the physical energy to do a more, vigorous practice, I started to go more into the philosophy of yoga. And so I had a book that's called The Myths of the Asana. So asana, is a physical posture. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
stories behind the poses. So I started to go into this book, and I was like, well, I need something that's going to help me get through this, and like be able to kind of pick myself up. And so that's when I found the myth of Virabhadra. So Virabhadra is the warrior behind the poses. So the poses themselves are called Virabhadrasana. There's three of them. So that's the story, and explains that. And I was like, wow, okay, well, let me give this a go. Like, let me see, what this can do for me right now. And then as I started to dive into it and begin to understand, because, the story goes on a journey, Virabhadra, the warrior, goes on a journey. And that's why the poses have three completely different shapes. So warrior one is more like this, warrior two is like that, and then warrior three is all sorts of wobbly because you're standing on one foot. And so it teaches us a lot of different things, not only about ourselves and activating these different things in our body, but it really teaches us these tools that we need to get through challenging moments. So that's what warrior one's all about, is about our determination and getting ourselves through and, navigating the darkness. And warrior two is about standing our ground, and really owning our power and being able to be present. And warrior three is bringing it all together and taking that kind of wobbly, authentic action that, when we're doing new things, or like when we're going out of our house for the first time in a little while, we're in isolation. We're like, oh, this is strange out here, and knowing that we have what we need to get through it within us. And so that's really the journey. And so that's, where I was at. And then it came to be, and I started to really practice it for myself. And then now I knew, going into quarantine and isolation back in March, I was like, I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart, and I'm so worried about the state of the world and all the things. And then I was like, oh, wow, I have the tools to get through this. And so I was so inspired at that point back in March to like bring it to life, because it really hadn't come to life before March. And so then I was like, hello world, would you like to learn about your inner warrior? Because I think you need it right now.
That voice makes it 10 times better too.
I know. And that's the thing that you probably have got about me, is that like I'm a bit ridiculous. And so I bring that into my work, because I think, hello, there's so much crazy stuff going on, and there's, life is far too serious sometimes, and we need to like take it down a notch. And so
Yes.
Of course I'm very reverent to the practice, but like I like to bring that sort of goofy, edgy, silly. Yes, yeah. The authenticity, as that is a quality of the warrior.
Yes, this is true. This is true. I remember taking this.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just so appreciative, because it did wonders for me. I thought that it was really great mentally, and definitely with all of the challenges with COVID, it was something that I just thought, oh God, I need this right now. So I know that it was really great for me. I was wondering for you with COVID, what are certain things that this practice will do when it comes to your mental health and centering yourself when it comes to anxiety and other issues that are happening around the world?
Well, yoga first and foremost is a breathing practice. A lot of people look at it and they're like, well, am I supposed to like twist into a pretzel shape? And that's not really the case. And so, I mean, yeah, you can do that. It's one of the tools, many tools of the yoga practice, but it's a breathing practice. And so, just going to the breath in and of itself is very calming for the nervous system, and very calming for, for feeling anxious. And so if we're feeling anxiety, or if we're kind of feeling in that state of overwhelm, going to the breath and simply just breathing and controlling and regulating the breath is so powerful. And it's pretty quick. It's like 3 breaths, and it starts to, you have this internal shift that's happening in your nervous system. And so, just that in and of itself, and then giving us the opportunity to kind of shift our focus away from the craziness of the world and regulate, because that's what we're doing when we use the breath, is we're regulating our nervous system. And so we give that chance for regulation, but then we move with the body, you're moving your blood, you're moving your lymph, and so you're activating your muscles, and so it helps to balance your hormones. And so it gives us that physical sense of calming, mental as well, and then also emotional. So it helps to regulate in whatever sense. So if you're feeling like overwhelmed and anxious, it kind of slows you down and brings you back to that state of groundedness. And if you're feeling sad or worrisome or grieving, depressed, then it helps you to kind of feel more centered and gives you that experience of like, okay, I can do this right now. I can do this. And that's it. Is like one breath at a time, one pose at a time, gives us that sense of like, okay, I can do this one at a time, and begin to move forward from wherever you're at. And a practice of self-awareness and self-observation, but ultimately self-love and acceptance. And it's learning to be really gentle with ourselves. And so, if you're feeling tired, then your practice, as I said, it looks like you go and you lay down on the mat and you just relax. Or if you're feeling more energized, then you can do something that's a little bit more active, And so it's adaptable in that sense, which is nice.
Nice. So if you were to tell your younger self, the person who you were when you were just starting yoga and going down this path, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Good question.
I know I throw those out there. It's ninja
Well,
style.
yeah, I know, I like it. I would tell that, that past current version of myself that it's something it's a lot deeper than you would expect, because you go to yoga and you think, okay, well, it's all about me being able to touch my toes or like do some sort of crazy pretzel shape. And it's really not. Ultimately, it's really about learning to get quiet, because the most powerful tool or weapon, if you will, I don't like weapons so much, but I know you being a martial artist, you like the weapons. The most powerful tool that we have when we learn to use it properly is our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the most challenging opponent. And so I think, to me, that's been the most powerful lesson in this, is learning to be able to witness my own self and my patterns and my thoughts, and being able to start to, control that and be more intentional and choose. And so that's really what it's about, is like learning, like we said, the mission that we're all on, and realizing like, okay, if I like what's going on in my head, then I can continue that. Or if I'm sick of the chattering monkey in my head, I need to learn to like be able to control it, because,
Yeah.
we all have these sort of running dialogues that might be good, but they may not, and so it's learning that you can switch that up.
Yeah.
That's what yoga does. That's what I would tell myself. It's a long-winded answer, but that's what I would tell myself.
No, this is a good answer. Some of
Okay.
the best answers are long-winded. So for you in this last 15 years, was there ever a time that was very dire that you feel that yoga saved you? And if so, how?
Yeah, it would be definitely that time that I was mentioning a few years ago, and then, begin to kind of just realize like it's going to be different from day to day, and just to be really loving and patient. And that's how it saved me, because, and there were many times when I was like in the thick of it and really feeling the feels, like going down the tunnel of life, or going down like into depression or anxiety. And it gave me that sort of repose or pause, if you will, because it allowed me to shift. And that's what it trained me to do, is train me to shift my focus, like love what's happening and accept it, but like not go into that like rumination spiral with it, and like just being able to kind of redirect my attention. So that's how it saved me, for sure, on many occasions.
Nice. Well, so you have a training coming up, and I'm interested in learning a little bit more about that and being able to share it with everyone. So tell us about what's going on.
Well, so I wanted to, as I've been just talking about, give people the chance to experience this practice for themselves, and give it through that different lens, and through the lens of learning about the warrior that we each have within us, and learning what it takes to connect to that energy and embody that energy and awaken that, and then ideally live from that place, step into that place of power, as often as we can, or as frequently as we need to, as the case may be.
Yes.
you know
Daily?
yeah, definitely daily. So the daily is the step one, and then what it takes is like, okay, gotta go back there. You can catch yourself and you go back, and again and again and again. It's a practice, after all. So that's what I'm going to be sharing next week. So we're going to dive into the story and the framework that it teaches us, and help you to kind of really unlock the power of these poses by learning the different keys that it gives us. So the framework and the teachings give us many different keys, but I want to focus on 3 of them, so that you can really start to understand and experience this for yourself, and step into the most aligned, energized, and empowered version of yourself. So that's what the workshop is all about. So it's next Tuesday. So that's September 15th, and then Wednesday, 16th and 17th. So it'll be at 9 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time, which is 12
Okay.
Pacific and 3 Eastern. And there'll be about 30 minutes. So that just so you can kind of get a sense for the story, get a sense for the tool, or the key rather, and then have a little mini practice so that you can start to understand what the story is teaching us about the shape of the pose, the architecture of it, and what it's actually bringing to life. So if you can't make it live at that time, no problem, because there'll be replays you can catch up.
Okay. And then how do we follow you? Where do we find you?
So I am, yes, I would love to connect. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Wake the Warrior Within. So I'd love
Okay.
to connect there. And then I have a free group, which is where the workshop series will be happening next week. But yeah, if you catch me up on Instagram, then I'd love to, connect over there. And then there's a link to sign up for the free workshop series in the bio.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. You take care.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.